Zara Kathrai sat alone in her small workstation, watching the blue glow of data streams flow across her screen. The numbers and reports meant nothing to the other Velinari who worked in the building. They shared thoughts through their neural links and processed information together like a giant mind. But Zara had to read every single line by herself. She pressed her fingers against her temples, tried to connect to the collective consciousness one more time. Nothing happened. The silence in her head felt like a wall between her and the rest of her people. Every other Velinari could share thoughts, feelings, and memories through the neural link that formed when they were born. Zara's link had never worked. The doctors called it a genetic defect. Her family called it a curse. The Velinari Council called her Malthera, which meant broken beyond repair. Zara just called it her life. Outside her window, the crystal spires of Velinara Prime reached toward the purple sky. The city hummed with perfect harmony as millions of Velinari shared their consciousness across the neural network. They moved together like parts of a machine, thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same emotions at the same time. Zara had never been part of that harmony. Her thoughts raced wild and free through her mind. Her emotions hit her like storms instead of gentle waves. When she was happy, she felt joy so strong it made her laugh out loud. When she was sad, tears fell down her face like rain. The other Velinari found her emotional displays disturbing and primitive. Her supervisor, Githmer Veldin, appeared at her workstation without warning. His pale blue skin had the same smooth texture as all Velinari, and his large dark eyes showed the calm peace that came from sharing consciousness with others. Zara Kathrai, he said in the flat tone that all Velinari used. Your work efficiency has improved by 12% this cycle. Zara looked up from her screen. Thank you, Supervisor Veldin. Do not thank me. I am merely stating facts. Stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. The council has reviewed your performance. They have decided to assign you to a new project. Zara's heart jumped in her chest. New assignments usually meant more isolation, farther from the city center where normal Velinari lived and worked. What kind of project? You will analyze data from the Outer Rim territories? Specifically reports about a species called humans? Veldin-S expression did not change. The council believes your defective neural patterns may be useful for understanding their chaotic behavior. The words stung, but Zara had heard worse. She had been called defective, broken, and corrupted so many times that the words barely hurt anymore. What do you know about humans? They are a primitive species from a world called Earth. They have no neural links and no collective consciousness. Each individual thinks and acts independently. Veldin paused, as if the concept disgusted him. They wage wars, argue among themselves, and experience extreme emotions. Their behavior makes no logical sense. Zara felt a strange flutter of curiosity in her chest. A species with no neural links? People who thought independently and felt strong emotions? It sounded almost like her own condition, but normal for an entire race. When do I start? Immediately. Your new workstation is in Sector 7, Level 43. You will have minimal contact with other Velinari personnel. Veldin turned to leave, then stopped. The council hopes this assignment will keep you occupied and away from normal citizens. Your emotional outbursts disturb the harmony.
After
He left. Zara gathered her few belongings and made her way to Sector 7. The corridors grew emptier as she moved away from the city center. By the time she reached Level 43, she had not seen another Velinari for 10 minutes. Her new workstation sat in a small room with one window. It looked out at the empty space beyond the city. The walls were bare white metal, and the only sound was the quiet hum of the air circulation system. It felt like a prison cell, but Zara did not mind. She had been alone for so long that solitude felt normal. She activated her computer and began reading the first report about humans. The data came from observation posts scattered across the galaxy. Velinari scientists who had studied human behavior from a distance. What she read made her lean forward in her chair with growing amazement. Humans lived in groups, but made decisions as individuals. They argued and disagreed with each other, but somehow worked together to build cities and explore space. They felt emotions so strongly that they cried, laughed, and shouted with no shame. They created art, music, and stories that expressed their inner thoughts and feelings. The reports called human behavior chaotic and unpredictable. The Velinary observers could not understand how a species survived without shared consciousness. They described humans as primitive and dangerous, driven by uncontrolled emotions and selfish desires. But as Zara read more, she began to see something different. The humans in these reports sounded like her. They thought for themselves, felt emotions deeply, and acted on their own choices. They were not broken or defective. They were simply different. One report caught her attention. Human exploration ship called the UES Wanderer had been detected near the edge of Velinary space. Ship was exploring new star systems, looking for resources and knowledge. The captain was listed as Jake Morrison, age 32, from a place called Texas on Earth. Zara studied the technical specifications of the human ship. It was smaller than Velinary vessels, but showed clever engineering. The crew lived in close quarters, but maintained individual spaces. They worked together without neural links, using something called communication to share information and make decisions. As she read, Zara felt something she had not experienced in years. Hope. These humans had found a way to live and work together without collective consciousness. They had built a civilization based on individual thought and choice. If they could, do it. Maybe she was not as broken as everyone believed. The computer chimed with an incoming priority message. Zara opened it and saw an emergency alert. The EU's Wanderer was in distress. Their ship had suffered critical damage and was drifting helplessly in space. They were requesting assistance from any nearby vessels. Zara stared at the message for a long moment. The Velinary had protocols for situations like this. They would send a rescue ship, help the humans repair their vessel, and send them on their way with minimal contact. It was the safe, logical response. But something inside Zara whispered that this was her chance to meet these humans who lived the way she had always wanted to live. Her chance to see if she really was broken or if she was just different. She opened a communication, channeled to the Rescue Coordination Center, and volunteered for the mission. The Velinary rescue ship moved through space like a silver needle threading through stars. Zara sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls despite the nervous energy racing through her body. She had never been this far from Velinara Prime, and she had never been alone on a mission this important. Commander Veltha sat behind her, his mind linked to the ship's navigation system through his neural connection. He could process star charts and course corrections without even looking at the screens. Zara had to do everything manually, reading instruments and making calculations by herself. "The human vessel is 2 hours ahead," Veltha said in his emotionless voice. "Their distress signal indicates critical engine failure. They will lose life support within 6 hours if we do not reach them." Zara pushed the ship faster through hyperspace. Something about the urgency of the situation made her heart pound with excitement instead of fear. The other Velinary on the ship remained calm and collected. But Zara felt alive in a way she had never experienced before when they dropped out of hyperspace. The UES Wanderer hung dead in space like a wounded bird. The human ship was much smaller than Zara had expected, maybe 1/5 the size of their rescue vessel. Dark scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections showed damage from what looked like an explosion. Primitive design, Veltha observed. It is remarkable that such a vessel could achieve interstellar travel. Zara studied the ship through the viewing port. The design was different from Velinary ships, but she could see the logic in its construction. Where Velinary vessels were built for collective crews who shared consciousness, the human ship seemed designed for individuals who needed separate spaces and clear communication systems. "They are hailing us," the communications officer announced. "Dot." "Them through," Veltha ordered. The main screen flickered to life, and Zara saw her first living human. The man who appeared on screen had brown hair, blue eyes, and skin that was darker than Velinary pale blue. He wore a uniform that looked practical rather than ceremonial, and his face showed lines that spoke of experience and worry. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Wanderer," the human said. "We are grateful for your response to our distress call. Our fusion core is destabilizing, and we have limited time before containment failure. Zara was surprised by how direct he was. Velinary communications always began with formal greetings and status reports shared through neural links. This human captain got straight to the point with no wasted time. Veltha stepped forward. "I am Commander Velthas of the Velinary rescue vessel Harmony's Edge. We will assist with your repairs." "Prepare to receive our technical team." "Understood, Commander. We have 30 crew members aboard, including 2 injured in the engine explosion. We would welcome any medical assistance you can provide." Jake Morrison's eyes moved across the screen, and Zara realized he was looking at the Velinary crew members. When his gaze reached her, she felt something strange happen. Instead of the empty politeness she was used to from her own people, she saw genuine curiosity and interest in his expression. "I am Captain Jake Morrison," he said, addressing her directly. "I do not believe we have been introduced." Zara glanced at Velthas, who nodded with obvious reluctance. "I am Zara Kethrai, technical specialist." "Pleased to meet you, Zara. Your ship is beautiful. The crystal formations and the whole design are unlike anything I have seen before." Heat rose in Zara's cheeks. No one had ever complimented her observations or asked for her opinions during official communications. Jake Morrison spoke to her like her thoughts mattered. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. Your ship shows interesting engineering solutions. The modular design allows for independent system operation." Jake smiled, and Zara felt her heart skip. Velinary never smiled. They showed approval through neural sharing, not facial expressions. But Jake's smile was warm and genuine, reaching his eyes and making small lines appear at the corners. "Please call me Jake. We do not stand much on ceremony out here." And yes, the Wanderer was built for long-range exploration. Every system has backup systems, and every crew member can handle multiple jobs if needed. Within an hour, Zara found herself aboard the human ship as part of the repair team. The moment she stepped through the airlock, she knew she was in a completely different world. The corridors buzzed with activity. Humans moved through the ship with purpose, but they also talked to each other constantly. They called out status reports, asked questions, made jokes, and even argued about the best way to fix problems. The noise level would have driven any normal Velinary to distraction, but Zara found it energizing. "Zara, over here," Jake called from across the engine room. "I'd like you to meet Lisa Park, our chief engineer." Lisa Park was a woman with short black hair and oil stains on her uniform. She looked up from a damaged control panel and wiped her hands on a cloth before extending one to Zara. "Nice to meet you," Lisa said. "Jake tells me you understand engine systems, thank God, because this fusion core is giving me a headache." Zara stared at the offered hand for a moment before realizing it was a human greeting custom. She reached out and grasped Lisa's hand briefly. The physical contact felt strange, but not unpleasant. "I have studied fusion technology," Zara said. "Perhaps I can help identify the problem." "Great. Take a look at this mess and tell me what you think." For the next 3 hours, Zara worked alongside Lisa and Jake to repair the damaged fusion core. What amazed her most was how they worked together. They did not share thoughts through neural links, but they communicated constantly through words, gestures, and expressions. They debated different approaches, disagreed about solutions, and even raised their voices during heated discussions. But somehow they made progress. Jake's experience with command decisions, Lisa's technical knowledge, and Zara's theoretical understanding of fusion systems combined to solve problems none of them could have handled alone. "You were different from what I expected," Jake said during a break in the repairs. He and Zara stood in the ship's observation lounge, looking out at the stars through a large window. "Different how?" Zara asked. "The reports we have about your people describe a collective consciousness where everyone thinks and feels the same things. But you seem more like us. You have your own thoughts and opinions. You get excited about solving problems, and you show emotions on your face." Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks again. "I am defective. My neural links do not work properly. I cannot connect to the collective consciousness." Jake turned to look at her directly. "Defective? You seem perfectly normal to me?" "Better than normal. Actually, you think for yourself and feel things deeply." Where I come from, those are good traits. Your people do not think I am broken? Broken? Jake laughed, but not in a mean way. Zara, you have helped us solve problems that would have taken our best engineers days to figure out. You communicate clearly, you work well with others, and you genuinely care about helping people. If that is broken, then I wish more people were broken the same way. Zara stared at him in amazement. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. No one had ever treated her differences as strengths instead of flaws. Dr. Ben Carter, the ship's medical officer, joined them in the observation lounge. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. Jake, I have finished treating the injured crew members. Our veterinary medical supplies are remarkably advanced. Ben, this is Zara Kethre. She has been helping us with the repairs. Ben smiled and extended his hand in the same greeting gesture Lisa had used. Pleasure to meet you, Zara. I have to say, you are not what I expected from first contact with your species. How so? Zara asked, shaking his hand. Well, the reports describe Velenaria as emotionally controlled and mentally connected. But you show expressions, you get excited about your work, and you seem to enjoy individual conversation, you remind me more of humans than aliens. Jake nodded. That is what I was thinking. Zara, maybe the problem is not that you are broken. Maybe the problem is that you were born into the wrong species. Zara felt something shift deep inside her chest. The idea was so simple and so revolutionary that she had never considered it before. What if she was not defective? What if she was just different in a way that made her more like humans than Velenari? The repairs are complete, Lisa announced. Over the ship's communication system, fusion core is stable and running at full capacity. As the human crew celebrated their success, Zara realized something had changed inside her. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. These humans did not see her as broken or defective. They saw her as useful, interesting, and normal. The feeling scared her and thrilled her at the same time. Zara spent 3 more days aboard the Wanderer while the human crew completed their repairs. Each day brought new discoveries about how different her life could be. She ate meals with Jake, Lisa, and Ben in their dining area, where conversations flowed freely without neural links. She learned about Earth, about human families, about the concept of choosing your own path in life. On the 3rd evening, Jake found her in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. She had been thinking about returning to Velenara, Prime in the empty workstation that waited for her. Credits for your thoughts, Jake said, using a human expression she had learned. I have been thinking about going home, Zara replied. It feels strange to call it home now. The ship feels more like home than anywhere I have ever lived. Jake sat down beside her on the bench that faced the large window.
Oh yeah, there.
Might be another option. Before Zara could ask what he meant, her wrist communicator chimed with an urgent message. The symbol of the Velenari High Council appeared on the small screen, and Zara's blood turned cold. Priority communication from High Harmonizer Veltar, the device announced in its flat mechanical voice. Report to designated coordinates immediately for mandatory return to Velenara Prime. Jake leaned closer to read the message. That does not sound good. Zara stood up quickly, her hand shaking. The High Council knows I have been here too long. They're ordering me back for neural reconditioning. What is neural reconditioning? It is a procedure they use on Velenari who cannot integrate properly. With the collective consciousness, they will either force my mind to connect with the neural network, or they will destroy my individual thoughts completely. Zara's voice cracked with fear. Either way, I will not be me anymore. Jake stood up and placed a hand on her shoulder. Gesture was gentle and comforting in a way that neural sharing had never been. There has to be another choice. There is no other choice. I am Velenari. I belong to my people, whether they want me or not. Do you belong to them, or do you belong to yourself? The question hit Zara like a physical blow. In all her years of feeling like an outcast, she had never considered that she might have the right to choose her own life. Velenari were born into the collective and remained part of it until death. Individual choice was not a concept that existed. In her world, their conversation was interrupted by Lisa's voice over the ship's communication system. Jake, we have a problem. Its long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships approaching our position. They are moving fast and they are armed. And Zara rushed to the bridge, where the crew was gathered around the main display screen. The tactical readout showed 6 large vessels approaching from different directions, surrounding the Wanderer's position. Ship design matches Kethmori Empire, Ben reported from his station. Military configuration with heavy weapons, Zara felt. Her stomach dropped. The Kethmori were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers who took what they wanted from weaker species. Their ships were built for war, not exploration. How long before they reach us? Jake asked. 18 minutes at current speed, Lisa replied. And Jake, there is something else. I am detecting Velinary ships mixed in with the Kethmori fleet. Zara stared at the screen in disbelief. My people are working with the Kethmori. That is? Impossible. The Velinary Council would never ally with raiders, unless they want something badly enough, Jake said grimly. Zara, I think they are here for you. The communication system crackled to life, and a harsh voice filled the bridge. Human vessel. This is War Leader Kethmer of the Kethmori Third Fleet. You will surrender the defective Velinary female immediately, or we will take her by force. Jake stepped toward the communication panel. This is Captain Morrison. It's the individual you are referring to is here by her own choice and under our protection. Harsh laughter came through the speakers. Humans do not have the power to protect anyone from us. Surrender the female, and we will allow you to leave this system alive. Jake looked at Zara, and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen in any Velinary face. Determination mixed with genuine care. He was willing to fight for her, even though they had known each other for only 3 days. Negative, Jake said into the communicator. We do not abandon our crew members. Crew member Kethmer sounded surprised. The defective one is not human. She is part of our crew now. That makes her family. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. No one had ever called her family before. Her own biological family had distanced themselves from her when her neural defect became apparent. The Velinary Society had labeled her as Malthera and pushed her to the edges of their world. But these humans, who had known her for less than a week, were willing to risk their lives to protect her. You have 10 minutes to reconsider, Kethmer announced. After that, we will board your vessel and take what we came for. Jake turned to his crew. Options. We can outrun them if we push. The engines pass safe limits, Lisa said. But not for long. And if they catch us, we will be defenseless. The asteroid field, Zara said suddenly. There is a dense asteroid field, 12 light minutes from here. I studied the navigation charts during my assignment on Velinar Prime. The field is too dangerous for large ships, but something the size of the Wanderer could navigate through it. You know the safe routes? Jake asked. Yes. I processed survey data from that region for 2 years. I know every stable path and hiding spot. Ben looked up from his medical station. Even if we reach the asteroids, they will follow us eventually. Not. If we make them think we were destroyed, Jake said with a smile that reminded Zara why she had grown to care about him so much. Lisa, can you rig a fake explosion? Something that would show up on their sensors? I can dump some plasma debris? Make it look like our fusion core failed. But we would have to shut down all systems except life support. No engines, no weapons, no communications. How long can we hide like that? Jake asked. Days if we have to, Lisa replied. The Wanderer was built for long-range exploration. We have supplies and backup systems. Jake looked at each crew member in turn. This is not your fight. Zara is asking for asylum, but I cannot order you to risk your lives for someone you just met. She saved our ship, Lisa said firmly. That makes her one of us. Besides, Ben added, I took an oath to help people in need. That applies to any species. The other crew members nodded their agreement. Zara looked around the bridge at faces filled with determination and loyalty. These humans were choosing to protect her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Jake, she said quietly, I formally request asylum with your crew. I do not want to return to the Velinary. I want to stay with people who see me as valuable instead of broken. Jake smiled and extended his hand to her. Welcome to the crew of the UES Wanderer, Zara Cathray. We are honored to have you. Zara shook his hand. She felt something settle into place inside her heart. For the first time in her life, she belonged somewhere. She had found her real family among the stars, and she was willing to fight to keep them. Lisa set course for the asteroid field, Jake ordered, and prepare that fake explosion. We are about to disappear. The Wanderer turned away from the approaching fleet and accelerated toward the distant asteroid field. Behind them, the Kethmori ships increased speed in pursuit. Zara took her position at the navigation station, her hands steady on the controls despite the danger they faced. She was no longer the broken Velinari who sat alone in her workstation on Velinara Prime. She was a member of the Wanderer crew, and she would help her new family escape from the people who wanted to destroy everything that made her unique. As they reached the edge of the asteroid field, Zara began plotting their course through the dangerous maze of rock and ice. Behind them, the Kethmori fleet closed in for what they thought would be an easy capture. They were about to learn that humans did not give up their family members without a fight. 6 months had passed since the Wanderer escaped into the asteroid field. The fake explosion had worked perfectly, convincing the Kethmori fleet that the human ship had been destroyed. After 3 days of hiding among the rocks, Jake had guided them out through a different route and back into open space. Zara stood in the ship's dining area, watching Lisa argue with Ben about the best way to prepare earth vegetables they had grown in the hydroponics bay. The argument was loud and passionate, but both humans were smiling. Zara had learned that humans could disagree strongly about small things while still caring deeply about each other. The key is not to overcook them, Ben insisted, waving a cooking utensil in the air. Vegetables should still have some bite too. Them, that is not cooking, that is barely warming them up, Lisa shot back. Food should be cooked properly, not left half raw. You two sound like an old married couple, Jake said as he entered the dining area. He carried a datapad and looked tired from another long day of exploration planning. We do not sound married, Lisa protested. Ben just has terrible taste in food preparation. I have refined taste, Ben corrected. There is a difference. Smiled as she listened to their friendly banter. This kind of easy interaction had become normal for her, but it still felt like a miracle. On Velinara Prime, disagreements were smoothed over through neural sharing before they could develop into real arguments. Emotions were kept controlled and balanced. But here on the Wanderer, people felt things deeply and expressed them openly. Jake sat down beside Zara at the table. How are you settling in? It's better than I ever imagined possible, Zara replied honestly. Every day I discover something new about how different life can be. Over the past 6 months, Zara had become the ship's navigation specialist and cultural liaison. Her knowledge of galactic politics and alien technology had proven invaluable as they explored uncharted regions of space. More importantly, she had learned what it meant to be part of a real family. The crew had voted unanimously to make her position official. The vote itself had amazed Zara. On Velinara Prime, decisions were made through collective consciousness, with everyone sharing the same thoughts until agreement emerged. But the humans had discussed her membership openly, each person expressing their individual opinion before reaching a unanimous conclusion. There is something I need to tell you, Jake said, his expression becoming serious. We received a long-range transmission this morning. It is not good news. Zara felt her stomach tighten. What kind of news? The Velinary Council has issued a galaxy-wide warning about human influence. They are claiming that contact with us has corrupted you and that our species represents a dangerous threat to galactic harmony. Lisa and Ben stopped their cooking argument and moved closer to hear the conversation. What exactly are they saying? Ben asked. Jake activated his datapad and read from the screen. They are calling humans a corrupting influence that promotes individual consciousness over collective harmony. They claim that exposure to human thoughts and emotions can damage the neural links that connect civilized species. Zara felt anger building in her chest. The emotion was strong and pure, without the dampening effect of neural sharing that would have controlled it on Velinara Prime. They are lying. You did not corrupt me. You helped me discover who I really am. Unfortunately, Several other species are taking the warning seriously, Jake continued. The Thamorian Federation has declared human space off-limits to their ships. The Zethkari Empire is demanding that all humans be removed from their territory. And the Kethmori? Lisa asked. They are claiming that eliminating the human threat would restore proper order to the galaxy. Intelligence reports suggest they are building a coalition of species who believe that individual consciousness is inherently dangerous. Zara stood up abruptly, her hands clenched into fists. This is my fault. If I had not joined your crew, none of this would be happening. Jake said firmly, also standing up. This is not your fault. You had every right to choose your own life. But my choice is putting your entire species at risk. Jake moved closer to her, his blue eyes serious but kind. Zara, you did not create this problem. You just exposed something that was already there. If other species are threatened by the idea of individual freedom, that says more about them than it does about us. Ben nodded in agreement. Manea, some of the most important progress in human history has come from people who thought differently from everyone else. If thinking for yourself is corruption, then corruption might not be such a bad thing. Besides, Lisa added, we have been dealing with people who want to control others for our entire history. This is just a bigger scale. Over the following weeks, the situation grew worse. The Wanderer intercepted communications from various species discussing the human problem. Some called for quarantine, others for re-education, and a few extreme voices suggested complete elimination. But there was also unexpected support. The crew discovered transmissions from individual members of other species who secretly agreed with human ideals. A Thamorian scientist named Dr. Kethanel had been conducting research into individual consciousness. A group of young Zethkari had formed an underground movement promoting personal choice. Even some Velinari were beginning to question the absolute control of the collective mind. It is not just about humans anymore, Zara observed during one of their evening discussions. It is about the right to think and feel as an individual versus the safety of collective control. Jake had been studying star charts, planning their next course through unexplored space. But Zara noticed that he was spending more time looking at her than at the navigation data. Their friendship had deepened over the months, and she was beginning to recognize signs of human attraction that were different from anything in Velinari culture. Velinari chose mates through neural compatibility tests administered by the Council. Emotions and personal preference played no role in the process. But humans chose partners based on individual feelings, shared interests, and personal connection. Jake, Zara said during one of their quiet moments together in the observation lounge, can I ask you something about human relationships? Of course. When humans choose life partners, how do they know if their feelings are real or just temporary attraction? Jake turned to look at her directly. That is a complicated question. I think it involves time, shared experiences, and whether you can imagine your life being better with that person in it. And if one person is human and the other is not, love does not recognize species boundaries, Zara. If two people care about each other, understand each other, and want to build a life together, the rest is just details. Zara felt heat rise in her face. Human emotions were so much stronger and clearer than anything she had experienced through neural sharing. When she looked at Jake, she felt happiness, excitement, and a desire to share everything with him that was completely new to her. I have been thinking about what you said when we first met, she told him. About me being born into the wrong species. What about it? I think you were right. But I also think I was born at exactly the right time to find the right people. She paused, gathering courage for what she wanted to say next. I think I was born to find you. Jake smiled, the expression that had first made her heart skip months ago. I have been thinking the same thing. Before either of them could say more, the ship's emergency alarm sounded. Lisa's voice came over the communication system with urgent news. All crew 2 stations. We are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command. The home system is under attack. Jake and Zara rushed to the bridge, where the crew was gathered around the main communication console. The message from Earth was broken and filled with static, but the words were clear enough. Multiple alien fleets approaching Earth. Kethmori, Velinari, and allied forces. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. All human vessels are ordered to return home immediately to assist in planetary defense. Jake stood silent for a long moment, staring at the communication display. Finally, he turned to address his crew. "You all know what this means? Earth is our home, and our families are there. We have to go back. Even if it means flying into a battle we might not survive," Ben asked. "Especially then," Jake replied. "The question is whether we all go together." Every eye on the bridge turned to Zara. She was the only non-human crew member, and this was ultimately a human war. But as she looked at the faces around her, she saw no doubt or hesitation. These people had accepted her as family, and family stayed together. "Set course for Earth," she said firmly. "We go home together." As the Wanderer turned toward distant Earth, Zara realized that she was about to face the ultimate test of her choice. Her old world and her new world were about to collide, and she would have to stand with the humans who had given her a life worth living. She was no longer the broken Velinari who had sat alone in her workstation. She was Zara Kethere of the UES Wanderer, and she was going home to fight for the people she loved. The journey to Earth took 18 days through hyperspace. During that time, Zara worked closely with Jake to prepare for what they might face when they arrived. The communications from Earth's Defense Command painted a grim picture. The Kethmori Empire had assembled the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. Supported by Velinari ships and several other species who viewed humanity as a threat to universal order. Estimated enemy fleet size is over 300 vessels, Jake read from the latest intelligence report. They are positioning themselves in the outer solar system, demanding that Earth surrender all humans who have been corrupted by individual consciousness. Zara felt sick to her stomach. They are asking for people like me. Humans who have shown other species that collective control is not the only way to live. They are asking for something we will never give them, Lisa said firmly from her engineering station. No one gets left behind. That is not how humans work. During the long journey, Zara made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing Velinari communication intercepts, she found something hidden in the data streams. Neural suppression codes were being broadcast across Velinari space, maintaining the collective consciousness through artificial means. "This cannot be right," she whispered, staring at her screen in the ship's computer lab. Jake found her there 3 hours later, still hunched over the data. "What did you find?" "Neural suppression signals," Zara said, her voice shaking. "The Velinari Council has been using technology to force collective consciousness. It is not natural. They have been artificially blocking individual thought in our people for centuries." Jake leaned over her shoulder to read the analysis. "You mean other Velinari could be like you if these signals were not suppressing their individual minds?" "Yes. The neural defect that made me an outcast is actually a natural evolution. My brain developed resistance to the suppression signals. I am not broken. I am what Velinari are supposed to become." The implications hit both of them at the same time. If the Velinari Council was artificially maintaining collective consciousness, then their entire civilization was built on a lie. Individual thought was not a corruption or a defect. It was the natural progression of their species. "We have to broadcast this information," Jake said. "If other Velinari knew the truth, they might break free from Council control. The Council will do anything to stop this from getting out. If they lose control of the collective consciousness, their power disappears completely." Jake took her hand in his, the gesture both comforting and strengthening. As over their journey together, their relationship had grown from friendship to something deeper. Zara had learned that humans called it love, and the feeling was unlike anything she had ever experienced through neural sharing. "We will find a way," Jake promised. "But first, we need to get home." When the Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, they found Earth surrounded by chaos. The enemy fleet hung in space like a dark cloud, hundreds of ships from different species united in their opposition to human independence. But they were not facing Earth alone. "Look at that," Lisa breathed from her station. Human ships filled the space around Earth in numbers that amazed even Jake. not just military vessels, but civilian ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, and exploration craft like their own. Every human ship that could carry weapons or people had come home to defend their world. This is Admiral Chen aboard the UES Defiance. Came a transmission on the emergency frequency. All returning vessels report to fleet coordination for assignment. We're glad to have you home, as the Wanderer moved toward the human fleet. Zara saw something that made her heart pound with excitement. Mixed in with the human ships were vessels from other species. Thamorian science ships, Zethkari traders, and even a few ships she did not recognize. Those are not all human vessels, she observed. Jake was thinking the same thing.
Yikes.
Looks like we are not the only ones who believe in individual freedom. They docked with the UES Defiance, a massive battleship that served as the fleet command center. Admiral Chen was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who listened carefully as Jake reported on their discoveries. So the Velinary Council has been artificially suppressing individual consciousness in their own people. Admiral Chen said after hearing Zara's analysis. That explains why they are so desperate to stop the spread of human influence. If we could broadcast the suppression codes and how to block them, other Velinari might break free, Zara explained. But we would need a very powerful transmitter to reach across their space. We have something better than a powerful transmitter, the Admiral said with a grim smile. We have allies who are already inside Velinari space. She showed them a holographic display of the galaxy, with communication links highlighted across multiple systems. Dr. Kethanel, the Thamorian scientist you mentioned, has been in contact with resistance groups on dozens of worlds. The young Zethkari movement has grown into a full rebellion. Even some Velinari have begun questioning the collective consciousness. How many? Zara asked. Enough to matter. The question is whether we can coordinate our efforts before the invasion fleet reaches Earth. Over the next 24 hours, Zara worked with human communication specialists to prepare the data about neural suppression for broadcast. The information had to be formatted in a way that would bypass Velinari security systems and reach individuals who might be ready to break free from collective control. Jake found her in the communication center during a brief break in the preparations. Earth hung in the viewport beside them, blue and beautiful, and threatened by the massive fleet that surrounded it. Are you ready for this? He asked. I do not know, Zara admitted. If we succeed, I will be helping to destroy the only civilization I have ever known. Or you will be helping it become what it was always meant to be. Zara leaned against Jake's shoulder, drawing strength from his presence. When I was growing up on Velinara Prime, I used to dream about finding a place where I belonged. I never imagined that place would be here, in the middle of a war, fighting against my own people. You are not fighting against your people, Jake said gently. You are fighting for their right to choose their own path, just like you chose yours. The moment was interrupted by Admiral Chen's voice over the ship's communication system. Personnel to battle stations. Enemy fleet is moving into attack position. The battle for Earth begins in 1 hour. As they prepared for what might be the most important battle in human history, Zara realized that everything in her life had led to this moment. Her neural defect, her exile from Velinari society, her meeting with Jake and the Wanderer crew, and her discovery of what individual consciousness could mean. She was no longer just fighting for her own freedom. She was fighting for the right of every thinking being in the galaxy to choose their own thoughts, feel their own emotions, and make their own decisions about how to live. Jake, she said as they headed to their battle stations, whatever happens, in the next few hours, I want you to know that meeting you and your crew was the best thing that ever happened to me. Jake stopped and turned to face her. In the middle of the corridor, with alarm sounding and crew members rushing past them, he took her hands in his. Zara Kethray, when this is over, will you marry me? The question hit her like a physical shock. Marriage was not a concept that existed in Velinari culture, but she had learned about human bonding rituals during her time aboard the Wanderer. You want to bond with me permanently? She asked, even though I am not human? Especially because you are not human. You have shown me what it means to be truly free. I want to spend the rest of my life exploring the galaxy with you. Zara felt tears form in her eyes. the emotional response that had once marked her as defective among her people. "Yes, Jake Morrison, when this is over, I will marry you." As they kissed for the first time, the battle alarms continued to sound around them, but for just a moment, Zara felt complete peace. She had found her home, her family, her love among the humans who valued her differences instead of fearing them. Now she had to help them survive the battle that would determine whether individual freedom had a future in the galaxy. The battle for Earth began with a transmission from war leader Kethmer that echoed across every ship in both fleets. His voice carried the arrogance of someone who believed victory was certain. "Humans of Earth, you have corrupted the natural order of the galaxy. Your influence spreads individual consciousness like a disease, destroying the harmony that has kept peace for thousands of years. Surrender now, and we will allow your species to continue existing under proper collective guidance." Admiral Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies, clear and defiant. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Earth does not surrender to bullies who fear free thought. If you want to take our world, you will have to fight for it." The enemy fleet moved forward in perfect formation, 300 ships advancing like a single organism controlled by collective minds. But as they approached the human defensive line, something unexpected happened. Zara's transmission began broadcasting from hidden relay stations throughout the galaxy. The data about neural suppression codes spread across Velinary space, reaching every ship and every settlement where her people lived under artificial collective control. "All Velinary vessels, this is Zara Kethri," her voice carried across the communication networks. "You have been lied to for centuries. Your collective consciousness is not natural. It is maintained by suppression signals that block your individual thoughts. I am transmitting the codes that will free your minds. You have the right to choose your own path." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the enemy fleet Velinary, ships began to slow and break formation. On some vessels, crew members who had never experienced individual thought suddenly found themselves thinking and feeling independently for the first time in their lives. Jake watched from the bridge of the Wanderer as chaos spread through the enemy ranks. "It is working. The Velinary ships are having internal conflicts." "Not all of them," Zara observed, pointing to a group of ships that continued advancing in tight formation. "Those are council vessels with enhanced suppression systems. The crew members cannot break free." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. It was not just a fight between fleets, but a war between two completely different ways of thinking. Human ships moved with individual creativity and adaptability, each captain making independent decisions based on changing conditions. The enemy ships that remained under collective control responded with coordinated precision, but lacked the flexibility to adapt when their plans went wrong. Lisa pushed the Wanderer's engines beyond safe limits as they dove between larger ships, using their small size and maneuverability to strike at enemy weak points. Ben coordinated damage control while Zara used her knowledge of alien technology to help target critical systems. "Kethmori's flagship is targeting the Defiance," Zara called out, reading the enemy ship's movement patterns. "They are trying to destroy Admiral Chen's command center." Jake made a split-second decision that would have been impossible under collective consciousness. "All power to engines. We are going to ram their weapons array." "That is suicide," Ben protested. "Not if we time it right, Zara. Calculate the exact moment when their shields rotate. Lisa, prepare for emergency power transfer." The Wanderer accelerated directly toward the massive Kethmori flagship, a ship 50 times their size with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But Jake's plan relied on human intuition and individual thinking working together. At the precise moment, Zara calculated. Lisa transferred all power from weapons and shields to the engines. The Wanderer shot forward like a missile, passing through a momentary gap in the enemy shields and striking the flagship's main weapon array. The explosion disabled the enemy ship's ability to fire on Admiral Chen's vessel. Throughout the battle, more Velinary ships broke free from collective control. As Zara's transmission continued to spread, individual Velinary began making their own choices about which side to support. Some joined the humans, Others remained loyal to the council, and many simply stopped fighting while they struggled to understand their newfound individual consciousness. The turning point came when Dr. Kethanol, the Thamorian scientist who had been secretly supporting individual freedom, broadcast his own message from his ship in the enemy fleet. To all species who value freedom of thought, the time for hiding is over. Individual consciousness is not a disease to be cured. It is the natural evolution of intelligent life.
Oh.
I choose to stand with humanity. His ship turned and opened fire on the Kethmori vessels around it. Within minutes, other ships from different species began switching sides. The young Zethkari rebels revealed themselves, along with Velinari who had broken free from suppression and members of species that Jake had never heard of. High Harmonizer Veltar appeared on the main communication channel, his face twisted with rage and desperation. You are destroying everything we have built. Without collective harmony, there will be chaos and war across the galaxy. Zara responded from the Wanderer's bridge, her voice carrying to every ship in both fleets. There will be choice, Veltar. For the first time in centuries, people will be able to choose harmony instead of having it forced upon them. True unity comes from individuals who decide to work together, not from minds that are artificially linked. The battle ended not with the destruction of fleets, but with the collapse of the alliance that had attacked Earth, as more and more ships broke free from collective control. The coordinated invasion became a scattered group of vessels, whose crews were too busy discovering individual thought to continue fighting. Kethmer's flagship, damaged and outnumbered, retreated along with the few remaining ships that still supported forced collective consciousness. The threat to Earth was over, but the transformation of the galaxy was just beginning. 3 months after the battle, Zara stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. She wore a simple white dress that Lisa had helped her choose, and her hands shook slightly as she waited for the ceremony to begin. Jake appeared beside her, wearing the formal uniform of an Earth fleet captain. Behind them, the crew of the Wanderer served as witnesses, along with representatives from dozens of species who had embraced individual freedom. "Are you ready to become Mrs. Morrison?" Jake asked, with the smile that had first made her feel welcome among humans. "I am ready to start the rest of our life together," Zara replied. The ceremony was performed by Admiral Chen, who had been given special authority to conduct marriages aboard military vessels and stations. As Jake and Zara exchanged vows, they looked out at Earth through the large viewport, the blue world that had become her true home. After the ceremony, there was a celebration in the station's main gathering area. Humans, Velinari, Thamorians, Zethkari, and representatives from other species mingled freely, sharing food, stories, and ideas. It was exactly the kind of chaotic, joyful gathering that the old collective consciousness would have called disruptive and dangerous. Lisa raised a glass of earth wine and called for attention. To Zara and Jake, who proved that love does not recognize species boundaries, and to the discovery that being different is not the same as being broken. As the crowd cheered, Zara felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see a young Velinari, female with the same pale blue skin and large dark eyes as her own people. But unlike the emotionless expressions Zara remembered from Velinara Prime, this woman's face showed genuine warmth and curiosity. "My name is Kira Velthan," the woman said. "I wanted to thank you for freeing us from the suppression signals. For the first time in my life, I can think my own thoughts and feel my own emotions." "What will you do now?" Zara asked. "I want to learn about other species and other ways of living. I have applied to join a human exploration ship as a cultural exchange officer." Kira smiled, the expression looking strange but wonderful on a Velinari face. "I want to discover who I really am when I am allowed to be myself." Jake joined their conversation, putting his arm around Zara's waist. "There is a whole galaxy out there, full of people who are just beginning to discover individual freedom. Someone needs to help them learn how to use it responsibly. Is that an offer?" Zara asked. "Is a proposal for our honeymoon? The Earth Fleet is organizing cultural exchange missions to help newly freed species learn about individual consciousness. They want experienced teams to lead the expeditions." Zara looked out at the stars visible through the station viewport. Somewhere out there, millions of beings were experiencing independent thought for the first time. They would need guidance, support, and examples of how individual freedom could create stronger communities instead of destroying them. "Where do we start?" she asked. Jake smiled and pulled out a star chart. "There is a Velinary colony world called New Harmony where the entire population broke free from collective control last week. They have requested human advisors to help them establish a new government based on individual choice and democratic cooperation." Zara laughed, the sound carrying pure joy that would have been impossible under neural suppression. "Perfect. Let us go teach my people how to be human."